International business environment is multidimensional, including the political risks, cultural differences, exchange risks, legal and taxation issues. Therefore, international business environment comprises the political, economic, cultural, competitive, and technological environments. The political environment refers to the type of the government relationship with the business, and the political risk in the country. Doing business internationally therefore implies dealing with a different type of government, relations, and level of risk. Because Apple is such a big company that it makes a lot of revenue, then it will be easy for Apple to open a shop anywhere around the world, and they'll be able to follow any political regulations without any problems, and the politics relationship will be positive. The economic environment relates to all the factors that contribute to a country's attractiveness for foreign business. The economic environment can be very different from one nation to another. Countries are often divided into three main categories: the more developed or industrialized, the less developed or third world, and the newly industrializing or emerging economies. Apple brings a lot of money to a country in many ways. For example, they attract people to shopping centers, improve the ship quality level in the area, which will attract people, and also they make a lot of money that they can put back into the country through tax and other expenses. The technological environment comprises factors related to the materials and machines used in the manufacturing of services and goods. Receptivity of organizations to new technology and adoption of new technology by consumers influences decisions made in an organization. Apple have a very advanced technological environment because they are at the top of their market. They use technology to build all their products, which makes them a very efficient company when it comes to manufacturing. The competitive environment also changes from country to country. This is partly because of the economic, political, and cultural environment. These environmental factors help determine the type and degree of competition that exists in a given country. There are very few competitors that are as big as Apple, which means they don't really have to change much from country to country to get the advantage over other companies such as Samsung. They will tend to only change based on local trends and national buying habits.
International trade is regulated by the World Trade Organization, who were formed in 1995 as a successor to the General Agreement Tariffs and Trade. There are 5 basic principles for the regulation of international trade, and they are non-discrimination, reciprocity, binding and enforceable commitments, transparency, safety values, and single undertake. Non-discrimination means that under the World Trade Organization agreements, countries cannot normally discriminate between their trading partners. Grant someone a special favour and you have to do the same for all other World Trade Organization members. Reciprocity means the practice of exchanging things with others for mutual benefit, especially privileges granted by one country or organisation to another. Binding and enforceable commitments are made by World Trade Organization members during trade negotiations. These negotiations are bilateral during the accession process and then become multilateral after a country has joined the World Trade Organization. Transparency means that World Trade Organization members are required to publish their trade regulations to maintain institutions charged with review of administrative decisions affecting trade, to respond to requests for information by other members, and to notify changes in trade policies to the World Trade Organization. Finally, the safety values and single undertake means that under specific circumstances, government can, within their limits, restrict trade to attain non-economic objectives to ensure fair competition under special economic circumstances.
Many businesses would need to adapt to certain rules and regulations depending on which country that they're located in. Since I'm living in the UAE, I know how a business such as Apple operates differently to a store operating in the United States, as this is where Apple are headquartered. The reason for saying this is because if you take a look at Apple products, especially the ones that are sold in the United Arab Emirates, the first point to take into consideration is how the functionality of the iPhone won't be same to an Apple iPhone in the USA. This is mainly due to the fact that countries such as the United Arab Emirates, they have banned certain stuff. Therefore, in order for a business to operate and function properly in a country, they need to meet certain rules and objectives, such as the UAE's rule on no VoIP, which stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. This means applications such as FaceTime, which is an Apple application, is not allowed in the UAE. Therefore, it proves my point to how businesses such as Apple will need to adapt to certain rules, and in this situation they have done that. Because if you take a look at the image which shows you the built-in apps on an iPhone in the United Arab Emirates, you can see the FaceTime application is not shown. Whereas, if you take a look at the built-in apps on an iPhone in the United States, you can see that FaceTime is available on the iPhones there. Additionally, Apple also do a lot of censorship, especially when it comes to movies that get sold on iTunes Store. The reason for this, since the UAE is a Muslim country, Apple would need to take note that there are certain things that are not culturally and religiously appropriate, especially when it comes to movies. This is why, when films get released in cinemas out here in the UAE, they would have some scenes that get blocked out. This is because it is not culturally appropriate, and the movies would need to delete any parts which could be a harm to viewers. Whereas with films that are available on the iTunes Store in the United States or in the United Kingdom, censorship isn't really a problem there, as they release full movies, whereas with certain countries they will have different rules, and that's why movies that get sold on iTunes, especially in the UAE and other Muslim countries, will need to have censorship, as they won't be allowed to sell the film online through the iTunes Store. But since Apple doesn't want this to happen, they will need to do the necessary requirements and make changes to films that are available, as they still want to generate sales from customers' online purchases via the Apple iTunes site.
Businesses such as Apple will be affected by a lot of countries' monetary policies, as it is based in 499 stores across 22 countries worldwide. Apple will monitor the policies and discussions of the G20 and other economic organisations so that they can identify new opportunities and use their leverage to protect their markets. This will be because global firms in the private sector are massively affected by the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank and other development organisations. The decisions made for specific countries will also affect Apple because many of the projects that the World Bank funds in specific countries are managed by the local governments, but the actual work is typically done by a private sector firm.
Businesses like operating internationally because of how it opens a new market to them. This will be good for any businesses, especially a business like Apple, because they're almost located across the world, as they have stores that are in China, the United Kingdom, United States, UAE, India, and many more to name. And all of this has benefited them a lot because of how everyone is loyal to the Apple brand, as almost everyone nowadays either own an iPhone, which is an Apple product, or other Apple devices such as MacBooks, iPads, and their Apple iWatch. So by allowing themselves to open up across the world, it will mean there will be more customers going into Apple stores, whereas if they didn't open up, they will be limited on the number of customers. But now, since they do have a lot of customers, the number of customers will continue to grow, as Apple still have other places which they want to start up, and the whole idea of having new markets really makes a business want to create more and more products, as customers will be in high demand and they really want to purchase new Apple products. And this is why annually Apple release a new iPhone during the month of September. Also, it allows Apple to have the competitive advantage, and this is having a positive effect on them, because by having more stores, it creates more awareness, as the brand name will be more common out there in the market world. So this is why a business like Apple can compete against other businesses like Samsung, Huawei, Google, and other big business groups, because of the competition they have of being out there in these new markets. and this can also allow them to work harder, and this is a great motivation for the team in Apple to work harder, as they would want to work hard in order to be the best business out there in the market world.
If an organization wishes to successfully expand their consumer base and profitability through internationalization, they need to spend time and resources trying to understand global market opportunities and ensure the proper choice and application of international business strategies. If an expansion into a new and foreign market is something that companies desire, they have to consider the adoption of international business strategies. These strategies need to be tailored to ensure that they have a best fit with their needs and capabilities. International business involves many considerations, including foreign stakeholders, employees, consumers, and governments, and therefore, business managers need to consider many factors when conducting business in global markets, such as competition, supply chain management, and pricing strategy. Apple employs the following international strategy: product and innovation strategy, by employing a very diverse staff to generate and share innovative ideas to maintain their global position. Manufacturing and supply chain, outsourcing manufacturing production to keep prices low. Marketing and branding strategy, game plan for attracting customers, traditional marketing and advertising, sales promotion, and digital marketing activities.
There are some methods on how to increase and restrict trade between countries. One that has been in the news quite recently is how Trump has put massive tariffs on things like steel and aluminium. These tariffs are at 25% on steel and 10% on aluminium. This will make it more expensive for domestic companies to use foreign products, and therefore it will decrease the demand for them. On the other hand, what Trump has done is make demand for the domestic steel and aluminium go up, so people will be buying American products instead of imported goods. This will then help the US GDP rise. This instantly affects countries like Canada, as their biggest importer of steel was America, so they decided to retaliate with their own tariffs. These tariffs will cover the US's dollar for dollar, and it is on 299 US goods, including steel, aluminium, and a variety of other products, including inflatable boats, yogurts, whiskies, candles, and sleeping bags. Now, for a country to improve or increase its international trading, one of the best things for them to do is improve the macroeconomic stability. This will make a country more attractive to inward investment. Investment can raise productivity and increase a country's capacity for exporting goods. The rise in productivity is likely to give the country more goods to be able to export to their trading countries.
There are many cultural differences that affect Apple as a company. Apple is an American company, however, because it is global, each company will have different working environments and their own little differences. The first difference that applies to Apple stores in the UAE is that the staff work shorter shifts compared to the United States. The Apple Store in the UAE operates for longer times, usually around 14 hours. I found this because after doing research for the Apple Store in Dubai Mall, it opens at 10 AM and closes at midnight. Another cultural difference is that there is more of a language barrier in the UAE, because not everyone that lives here understands Arabic and has it as their second or first language. This makes it hard for the staff to help the customers. If the customer cannot understand the staff, then they won't be able to feel comfortable buying the product. Apple will need to find specific people who know a range of languages to avoid confusion in the UAE shops. This isn't as big a problem in the US because the majority of people speak English or understand English, so it's a lot easier to communicate.